Good morning and welcome to Gretchen's Garden and Greenhouse. Now, gardening is a multifaceted function, if you will. Some of it's the enjoyment of eating, but there's also a certain amount of work that goes into it, and maintenance. And today, maintenance is what I'm working on, and I've got two things. And I'm going to set this down for a moment. We'll get to that in a moment here. And this is algae blocker, I guess you would call it. And the directions say to put a teaspoon per 50 gallons. Well, anyway, it works out to be about a couple of tablespoons worth of this stuff in our pond here. And, well, I'm not going to run around with a tablespoon and measuring it out. So I have my own system, which happens to be the glug system. You go, there, that looks pretty good. Yeah, it's worked well for a whole lot of years, so that's the glug system. Now we'll just set this aside for a moment, because the other thing is this large waterfall here. The filter on it, I got to clean it a couple of times a year. With the small one right here, I've got to clean it a couple of times a week. And that's what I have here. Is I have a spare piece of foam, which is the filter, and a block or a pad to put the old one on. So let me pull this out. You know, I usually get a screwdriver, or I can just take my splicing scissors, open them up slightly, and open this up. And I've got a really dirty filter in there. I'll just take it out, set it down, put the cleaned filter back in, and put this on, put it back in the pond. And before I leave, I want to make sure that yep, it's starting to flow. Yep, it's back to flowing like it should. Now, the reason I've got this is that I want to take this dirty filter into the kitchen sink and clean it. Also in the kitchen, Gretchen is doing some potting of new plants. So join me in the kitchen. We'll see what Gretchen's got going.
Well, good morning. The last part of July, August, September are the times of years when I do a couple of things. I like to go peruse the places like Lowe's, Home Depot, or my local nursery, and look for plants that are on special. Sometimes they're kind of stressed, but if you take a look at the roots, and the roots are nice and white, they're very, what do I want to say, revivable. I can get them growing again. And that's one way to get less expensive plants. And we have such a large yard that we try to furnish it with as cheaply as we can. So today we went to grocery shop, and we stopped by Home Depot, and I found this echinacea, which is a color we don't have. And what I did is I took the plant and I moved my fingers in here to see if I could get more than one plant out of it. And I think that this isn't science, so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think I can get about 3 plants out of this. So we'll take a look. This plant has grown through the holes, so it's a little harder to get out. So if you take a look at the roots, you can see I've got some nice roots, and they're nice and white. They're not brown and ugly looking. This is nice and moist, so it's been taken care of. If you look down in here, you can kind of see that I've got actually about 3 different things that I'm going to try to separate. I have some pots. I like to mix a little perlite with my potting soil. simply because that gives me better drainage. So I have a bag of perlite here, and I'll open it up. The thing I like about perlite is that it not only causes good drainage, but it also holds water, so it holds a little moisture too. So it's a really good thing to add to your potting soil. So I'm going to do about 1/3, 2/3. So let's put this in here. That looks pretty good. Now we'll mix it up.
I love that stirring device that she has there. It comes from the chef's store.
Yeah. It's interesting, the scoops at the nursery were really expensive. And the scoops at the food supply, restaurant supply store were about, maybe 2/3 to 3/4 the cost. And so I buy lots of stuff at the restaurant supply place that's for stuff other than restaurant, because I obviously don't have a restaurant. So we'll put a little bit of this in the bottom. So that's ready to set a plant down, and we'll set it aside. Now the trick is which one of these tools is going to work? Well, I'm looking at this, and this is a big plant. It has a pretty good ball. So I think I stole this from Al.
My hacksaw is going to really be in good shape to be used on metal after this, I can see.
Okay, so what I'm going to come right down here and just saw right through that. And get down here a ways, and I think then I can probably tease it apart. And now the hacksaw's that's the way to go. Yeah, gonna have to pull that apart a little bit. There we go. Now my pot is a little shallow. I probably should have gotten a deeper one. So I'm gonna take some of these roots off. See if I can make this little shorter pot work. That looks pretty good. Let's see how that is. There we go. And I think I'm going to get bigger pots to put this in, so we'll just set this aside for now. And you can see now I've got and we'll just set this one down in there. We'll set this one over here. And you don't have to watch me pot these, but well, that's going to work for that one, isn't it?
Yeah, you put some perlite at the bottom and that'll be fine. It needs a little bit of that. It needs to raise it up just a touch.
There we go. That looks pretty good. And we'll just fill it in. The other thing that you want to do with this now is keep it pretty wet to start with, to give those roots a good opportunity to take off. Now I could put this in the ground, but the problem is right now it's pretty hot out there. We get some pretty hot, dry weather where we live here in Boise. So what I like to do is I'll water it really good, and then I'll set it back in the berry patch where it's cooler and kind of shady. Although this plant likes sun, until it gets established, I want to keep it not in really, really hot sun. So what I will do now is I will grow this plant until probably the first part of September when the weather is down to the 80s. And then I will put it in the one of the borders somewhere.
Oh, great. And we'll have some different colors because what we have now is a really bright orange, and this is more of a yellowish orange.
Yeah, we've got the bright orange and we've got a pink one, and most of them are the blue kind of bluish purple. And so this is a really different color. I like to set my plants just down here in the sink and turn this down real low and just give it a little water. That will be just, so I got 3 plants for the price of 1. You have to look.
And the plant was 50% off because it's getting late in the season.
Yeah, perennials are, okay, all the plants actually are, most of them were on special. The trees, and I'll give it a little water and clean it up a little bit too. There. So that's one way to reduce your cost. Besides, you're better off to plant in groups. So these will be planted somewhere in the yard where I've got a spot like that, and I can put 3 of them in, and then we'll have a nice big clump. Well, now that I'm done with the sink, Al can finish his project here.
Yes, and then I put this with, obviously, if I just carried that into the house, it would make a mess. So we're not going to do that. And all we just do is get the algae cleaned out of this thing. And then we have one other maintenance project of many maintenance projects, but one that I'll share with you because it's kind of unusual here in Idaho at this time of the year. This is late July. We don't get a lot of wind. It's usually just hot and humid, and once in a while a little bit of wind with a rainstorm, and that's it. But this past week we had some really tough wind. It was more like spring, April or so, rather than July, and we had some plants that started to blow over. Specifically, a tomato plant. I'll just put this out in the garage as we go out. Let's take a run out to the raised beds, and I want to show you what we ran into out there, something that you may want to put in your list of things to do. But I will set this up here for right now, and we will head out to the raised beds. Now, one of the things that I noticed in our trip today to get the plant for Gretchen to repot was that Home Depot, where we bought that plant, had the same problem that we had out here. The wind came up, blew some of the trees over in their garden area, and I took a quick shot of the ones in the garden area that were blowing over, and then right across the aisleway there was one where they had put several heavy bricks in to keep it from blowing over. Well, we ran into the same thing, but not with trees. It was with our tomatoes. Now, this tomato plant, as you can see, this is the kind of a stand that they grow on. And it usually, in most conditions, we've never had to do what I did this last week, which was the wind was blowing in from the side we're standing on now, and it was just about to blow over and end up out in the aisle, which means it would have rooted the tomato. So I tied a rope on it and came across and tied it across over here to act as a guy rope, because I had to do something really quick because it was about to blow over. And I wasn't going to get a stake out and pound it in the ground. But what I'll probably do is we'll take this out and I'll add a steel post to provide some additional support.
As you can see, it actually bent the stems over in that direction too.
Yeah, it's
so
all
it's
all
going to be
tilted.
a challenge picking those.
Yep, it's all tilted in the other direction. But anyway, that's very impromptu fix this last week, and sometimes your maintenance work can have a little bit of planning to it, and sometimes it's done in a panic mode.
Well, we can just take a quick look. There are the tomatoes. You can see how the peppers are growing. We still have squash that's doing good. And then of course here's our sack potatoes. So that kind of gives you a little, oh, and our broccoli over there. So things are looking good.
Yep, they sure are. Well, that's it for this episode of Gretchen's Garden and Greenhouse. Thanks so much for joining us. See you next time.
Bye.